Good morning, everyone. Is my screen visible? Good morning, everyone. Is my screen visible? Perfect. Guys, from today onwards, we are going to start with microservices. From today, we are going to start with microservices. So before going to start our microservices development, we need to understand monolith versus microservices. We can develop our project in two ways. One is by using monolith architecture, and the second one is by using microservices architecture. The application can be developed in two ways. One is by using monolith, and the second one is by using microservices. Sir, what is the difference between this monolith architecture and microservices architecture? So monolith architecture, nothing but one single application for all the requirements. So if you develop one single project for your complete requirement, if you develop one single project for complete requirement, nothing but client has given some requirements to develop one e-commerce application. In the e-commerce application, we will have several functionalities. Products display will be there. First of all, users will create the accounts in the application. Registration will happen, login will happen, registration will happen, forgot password, searching for the products, filtering the products, adding the products to the cart, doing the checkout, doing the payment, product delivery, product tracking, order cancel, okay, amount refund, replace the order, return the order. Like that, there are reports in the project, admin module. N number of functionalities will be available in a project. If you develop all those functionalities as one single application, then it is called as monolithic architecture. Are you guys getting my point? What is monolithic architecture? If you develop one single application for all the given requirements, then it is called as monolithic architecture. So when we go for this monolithic architecture, there are some advantages and some disadvantages. So what are the advantages are there when we go for monolith architecture? Application development will be easy. Deployment also easy, because we are developing one single project. So easily we can develop the project and easily we can deploy the project. And application performance also will be easy, because everything will be available at one place. So development and deployment is easy. Performance of the application also will be easy, because a request will come from user interface to business logic to data interface, then directly communicate with the database. Every request will execute in one application. So performance of the application also will be good when you go for monolith architecture. Testing is easy, as the application functionalities are available in one project. The testing of the project also will become very easy. And debugging, suppose if some code is not working, then easily we can do the debugging of that code. Easy debugging we can do. And next one is KT is easy. KT nothing but knowledge transfer. When a new developer joined our team, explaining them about the project architecture, about the project execution flow, that is very easy, because only one application for the complete requirement. Client may have 100 requirements, client may have 200 requirements. For all those requirements, we are going to create one project. That project we call it as monolith architecture. Application can be developed in two ways. One is by using monolith architecture. Second one is by using microservices architecture. If we develop all the functionalities in one single application, then it is called as monolith application. That is called monolith architecture. What are the advantages of going for monolith architecture? Application development will be easy. Application deployment will be easy. Application performance will be good. Application testing will be easy. Application debugging will be easy. And explaining about our application to the new team members, providing the KT for them is also easy. These are the advantages of going for monolith architecture. Are you able to understand what is monolith architecture? Are you guys able to understand what is monolith architecture? Are you guys able to understand what is monolith architecture? Guys, are you clear with what is monolith architecture? A single application with all the requirements is called as monolith architecture. Okay, guys. Next one. Advantages are there. What are the disadvantages? What are the disadvantages? Guys, come on. What are the disadvantages? Single point of failure. Single point of failure. Single point of failure. What is the meaning of single point of failure? If the application is failed, if there is any problem in the application, then the entire application is going to fail. So that is called single point of failure. If there is some problem in the business logic execution, then the whole application is going to fail. If there is a small problem in the user interface, then the whole application is going to fail. That is, single point of failure is one of the biggest disadvantage when we go for monolith architecture. And the second one is whole application redeployment. If you make any change in the database layer, if you make any change in the database layer, then what we need to do? If you make any change in the database layer, then what we need to do? We need to redeploy the entire application. If you make any changes in the code, then the whole application should be redeployed. That is also one of the drawback. Understand my point? Single point of failure will be available for monolith architecture. If there is any problem in the project, then the whole application is going to fail. And if you make any changes in the code, then the whole project should be redeployed. The next one is scalability. So if you are running one application, if you have all the functionalities in one application, so many people will be accessing your application. So many people will be accessing your application. The load will increase on the server. So many people will access your application. So many requests will come. The load will increase on your application. Then you need to increase the number of servers to run your application. When the load is increasing, your infrastructure should be increased. When the load is decreased, your infrastructure should be decreased. Scalability of the application is one of the biggest challenging tasks in the monolith. And reliability. Reliability means how strong your application. If 1 crore people access at a time, still is it responding for the all the 1 crore people at a time? If 10 crore people access your application at a time, still, is it responding? Is it responding? Is it responding or not? That also we need to understand. That also we need to understand. Okay, guys. That also we need to understand. Fine. That also we need to understand. So reliability, availability, is that application is having availability. That means 24 by 7, 24 by 7, is that application running? 24 by 7, is that application is running? 24 by 7, is that application is running? 24 by 7, is that application is running? Availability, that also we need to check. Single point of failure, whole application redeployment, scalability, reliability, and availability. These all are the problems when we develop our application with a monolith architecture. These are the problems we are going to face when we develop our application with a monolith architecture. Are you able to follow me? What are the advantages of the monolith and what are the disadvantages of the monolith? What are the advantages of the monolith? What are the disadvantages of the monolith architecture? Are you clear? Can you please read out? Can you please read out? Can you please read out? Monolith means one single application. 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 All the functionalities we are developing in the single application. Application development will be easy. Application deployment will be easy. Performance will be good when the single application is available. Testing will be easy. Debugging will be easy. KT will be easy. But the disadvantages, single point of failure will be available. Whole application should be redeployed. Scalability of the application is difficult. Reliability of the application will be difficult. Availability, zero downtime. 24 by 7, 24 by 7, my application should be up and running. 24 by 7, my application should be up and running. That is called availability, zero downtime. These all are the drawbacks when we go for monolith architecture. So a single project will be developed with all the functionalities. Single project will be developed with all the functionalities. If any problem occurred, then the whole project will be down. If any problem occurred, the entire application will become down. So that is single point of failure. If there is a small change in the code, then the whole application should be redeployed. As we are running single application in the server, so many requests will come to our application. So our server should be able to respond to all those requests. So many requests will come to our server. Our server should be able to respond to all those requests. Our server should be able to respond for all those requests. Okay. Then what about scalability? You need to increase the number of servers. You need to increase the number of servers. Scalability we need to do. Reliability. So how strong your application is. If multiple people are accessing at a time, is it responding properly or not? That also we need to check. And we need to check zero downtime. That means the 24 by 7, 365 days, 24 by 7, 365 days, your application should be available for the people to access. 24 by 7, 365 days, your application should be available for access. So we need to check that scalability and we need to check that availability also when we are going for monolith architecture. But nowadays, when we are having these drawbacks, is it recommended to develop the application by using monolith architecture? Guys, is it recommended to develop the application using monolith architecture? No. The maintenance of the project will become very difficult. When we go for monolith architecture. The maintenance of the project will become very difficult when you go for monolith architecture. To overcome the drawbacks of the monolith architecture, we are going for microservices architecture. What we are using to overcome the problems of monolith architecture? To overcome the problems of monolith architecture, we are going for microservices architecture. Right, guys? Microservices is not a separate programming language. Microservice is not a separate API. Microservice is not a separate framework. Then what is microservice? Microservice nothing but it is a design pattern to develop our application. What is microservice, guys? Can I say microservice is one new API? Can I say microservice is one new programming language? Microservice is a new API, or microservice is a new framework, or what is a microservice? What is microservice, guys? What is microservice? Microservice, can I say microservice is one API? Microservice is one programming language? Microservice is one programming language? Microservice is a framework? No. Then what is microservice? Microservice nothing but one design pattern to develop our application. It is one architectural design pattern. It will tell you how to develop the application with loosely coupling. Microservices is a design pattern. It will tell you how to develop the application with loosely coupling. Are you clear? Now, so instead of developing our application, instead of developing all the functionalities in one application, we are going to divide the functionalities into multiple services. Instead of developing one single application, we are going to divide the application into multiple services. So that is called as microservices architecture. Are you guys able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? Are we going to develop one single application, or we are going to develop multiple applications? Are we going to develop one single application? Are we going to develop multiple applications for our project? Come on, guys. Are we going to develop single application? Are we going to develop multiple applications? We are going to develop multiple applications. We don't keep everything in one project. Here in the monolith, everything will be available in one project. But when it comes to the microservices, application functionality will be developed as multiple APIs. Application functionality will be developed as multiple APIs. So what are the services here? These services are RESTful services. These services are REST APIs. Now, if you take an e-commerce application, for a products display, one service will be available. For payment, one service will be available. For checkout, one service will be available. For order tracking, one service will be available. For cancellation, for order cancellation and for returning the orders, one service will be available. Instead of developing one single project for all the functionalities, we are going to develop several services to develop our application. So this is loosely coupled services. These are loosely coupled services that we are going to use. These are the loosely coupled services that we are going to use to develop our application. So monolith means everything will be available in one big box. The one single application will be developed when we go for monolith architecture. One single application will be developed when we go for monolith architecture. But when it comes to microservices, can we go with a single application? No. When it comes to the microservices, we are going to use multiple services. All right. Now, sir, what are the advantages of going for this microservices architecture? Okay. The first advantage of microservice is loosely coupled. So the functionalities are loosely coupled. So first one is product service, all the products which are going to display here. And the second one is the cart service. Third one is the checkout service. Fourth one is payment service. And fifth one is the tracking service. Every functionality developed as a separate API, separate REST API. So all these services are loosely coupled. All the services are loosely coupled. Or else, for example, let us go to one project called Make My Trip application. Let us go for one project called Make My Trip application. In the Make My Trip application, there are so many functionalities are available. Flights functionality available, hotels functionality available, trains functionality available, buses functionality available, cabs available. Like that, there are so many functionalities are available. There are so many functionalities available in the Make My Trip. Do you think that they developed this Make My Trip using monolith architecture? Flights booking, trains booking, buses booking, cabs booking, holiday packages, hotels? No. If they develop this Make My Trip application as a monolith, so tomorrow if there is a problem in the flights booking, the whole application will be down. So tomorrow if there is a problem in the trains booking, the whole application will be down. So that's why they developed this application by using microservices architecture. Flights, one API will be available in the background. For booking the flights, one service will be available, that is one REST API. And to book the hotels, so to book the hotels, one REST API will be available, that is called one service. So to book the trains, one REST API will be available in the background. And to book the buses, one REST API will be available in the background. To book the cabs, one REST API will be available in the background. So here the services are nothing but REST APIs which are having a goal. Every service will have its own goal. This first service used to book hotels only. Second service is responsible to book flights only. Third service is responsible to book cabs only. Fourth service is used to book only hotels or flights, trains, whatever it is. Fifth service only for payment. Okay, so every service will have its own goal when you go for microservices, and these services are loosely coupled. Now tomorrow, if there is a problem in the flights, if there is some problem in the flights booking functionality, the whole application will be down, or only flights booking will be down. When we develop the project using this architecture, when there is some problem, the entire application will be down. The entire application will be down, or only flights booking will be down. Come on, guys. The entire application will be down, or only flights booking will be down. Only flights booking will be down. Single point of failure problem will be resolved in this approach or not? Single point of failure problem will be resolved in this approach. If I develop this Make My Trip by using monolith architecture, if there is a problem in one functionality, then the whole project is going to be down. The whole project is going to be down. And one more thing, tomorrow, if I make a change in the first service, do I need to deploy all the services, or in which service we do the change, only that service we need to deploy? If there is any change, do I need to deploy all the services or I need to deploy only one service? So in which service you made the change, only that service you need to deploy. You no need to deploy all the services available in the project. Microservices project nothing but collection of REST APIs only. What is the meaning of microservices architecture project? Microservice architecture project nothing but collection of REST APIs only. So there is no problem with a single point of failure, because if one service is having a problem, only that service will be down, remaining services will be up and running. Remaining services will be up and running. So if there is a problem in one service, only that service will be down, the remaining functionalities will execute as expected. The remaining functionalities will execute as expected. Able to understand my point? Are you able to understand my point, guys? Right. Now, if there is a change in the project, do I need to deploy the entire application or I need to deploy only the particular service which is failing? If there is a problem, do I need to deploy the entire application or I need to deploy only the application service which is modified? Only particular service I need to deploy which is modified. So can I say the advantages with microservices is loosely coupling? Can I say the advantage is a loosely coupling? Yes or no? Loosely coupling. And development will be faster. Do I need to wait for all the services to complete, or whichever the service is completed, we can release that service to the client? Do you need to wait for all the services to be completed, or which service is ever completed that we can deliver to the client? Whichever the service is completed, can we deliver that service to the client? Whichever the service is completed, can we deliver that service to the client, or do we need to wait for all the services to be completed? Come on, guys. Come on. No need to wait for all the services. If you complete first service, then you can release the first service to the client. If you complete second service, then you can release second service to the client. If you complete third service, you can release third service to the client. That means application development will be faster. Application releases also will be faster. One service is nothing but one REST API. One service is nothing but one REST API. We can release this application to the client quickly. We can release this application to the client quickly. Are you guys able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? Come on. So application services will be loosely coupled and the development will be fast, quick releases. So you no need to wait for the entire application to be completed. You can develop one first service, you can develop it and you can release it. Flexibility will be there, scalability will be there, no single point of failure, and technology independence. What is the meaning of technology independence? Technology independence means, do you need to develop do you need to develop all the functionalities using do you need to develop all the functionalities using one technology? Can I use multiple technologies to develop multiple microservices now? Guys, do I need to use only Java to develop all the services, or I can use Java for one service, .NET for one service, Python for one service? Because one service nothing but one separate project. One service nothing but one project. Can we use different technologies to develop? Can we use different technologies to develop? Yes or no? Yes. You will have a lot of flexibility when you are going to develop the project by using microservices architecture. You will have a lot of flexibility when you go for microservices architecture. Are you clear with this? What is microservices? Okay. If we develop the functionalities in multiple services, then it is called as microservices architecture based application. Instead of developing all the functionalities in one application, we will develop the functionalities as multiple services. That is called as microservices based application. Every microservice will have its own goal. Every microservice will have its own goal, and loosely coupled services will be loosely coupled. Development will be faster, releases will be faster, flexibility will be available for the development, scalability will be available because all the services will not run in one server. When you go for monolith, when you go for monolith, complete application will be running in one server. Lot of requests will come to the single server to handle. So that will become a problem when we go with monolith architecture. That will become a problem when we go with monolith architecture. But when it comes to microservices architecture, when it comes to microservices architecture, all the functionalities, all the requirements will not come to single server because the services will be running in the separate servers. First service will run in one server, second service will run in another server, third service will run in another server, fourth service will run in another server. Okay, multiple services will be running in multiple servers, so burden will not be increased on the servers. Burden will not be increased on the servers. So scalability will become easy. Scalability will become easy when we go for this. Scalability will become easy when we go for this application. Okay, and the maintenance of the project also will become easy. Scalability will be easy and the maintenance of the project also will be easy. No single point of failure. Technology independence will be available. You no need to use only one technology to develop all these services. One API I can develop by using Java. Another API I can develop by using .NET. Another API I can develop by using Python. Like this, for every service we can use a separate technology. If you have the people, if you want to develop quickly, if you have the team who can work on the multiple technologies, then directly you can develop your APIs with multiple technologies, your APIs with multiple technologies. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? What is the difference between monolith and microservices, guys? Can you tell me? What is the difference between monolith and microservices? Can you tell me? What is the difference between monolith and microservices? Can you tell me? Monolith means one single project. Monolith means one single project will be available. Everything will be available at one place when you go for monolith architecture. All the functionalities will be developed in single project. All the functionalities will be developed in single project when we go for monolith architecture. All the functionalities will be developed in the single project when we go for monolith architecture. But when it comes to microservices architecture, functionalities are divided into several services. Functionalities are divided into several services. When you go for monolith, one single project will be available with all the functionalities. When it comes to the microservices, functionalities are divided into multiple APIs. Functionalities are divided into multiple APIs. Able to follow me? Are you able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? Monolith and microservices. Yes. What are the advantages with microservices? Loosely coupled, loosely coupled. Okay. Loosely coupled is there. Loosely coupling is there. Loosely coupling is there. And the next one, fast development will be available. Quick releases will be available. Flexibility will be available. Scalability will be available. Scalability will be available. No single point of failure. Technology independence. So like this, several advantages are there when you go for microservices. Along with advantages, there are some challenges also with the microservices. I'm not saying that drawbacks, guys. So there are some challenges available when we go for microservices architecture. There are some challenges available when we go for microservices architecture. Sir, what are the challenges with the microservices architecture? What are the challenges with the microservices architecture? The challenges are, first one is bounded context. The first challenging task is bounded context. So what is the meaning of a bounded context? So we have a project. Client has given some requirements. Client has given 100 requirements. For those 100 requirements, how many services we need to develop? Client has given 100 requirements. For the client given 100 requirements, how many microservices we need to develop? Do we need to develop 100 microservices for 100 requirements? Do we need to develop 40 microservices for 100 requirements? That identifying that for 100 requirements, we don't develop 100 microservices. So we need to understand for which microservice we need to develop, for which which functionality should be part of which microservice. We need to identify that. We need to identify that. That is a challenging task in the microservices. Identifying that how many microservices we need for our application. Identifying that how many microservices we need for our application. That is the challenging task. That is the challenging task. Identifying number of microservices that are required for our application. Identifying number of microservices that are required for our application. Are you guys able to follow my point? Are you guys able to follow my point? Are you guys able to follow my point? Come on, guys. Are you guys able to follow my point? Okay. Number of bounded context. So it requires a lot of analysis. Sir, what is the solution for this problem? Solution means analysis only. What is the solution means? Solution means analysis only. So you need to understand that how many microservices we need to develop for our project, that we need to analyze. How many microservices we need to develop, that we need to analyze. That is one of the problem. Bounded context. That is one of the problem. That is a bounded context. How many microservices we need to develop for our application? How many microservices we need to develop for our application? So that we need to understand. Bounded context. Right. Next one is configuration. In the microservices, lot of configurations will be available. Guys, my first microservice want to talk to database. My second microservice want to talk to database. My third microservice want to talk to database. Fourth microservice want to talk to database. So the database configurations you need to do in every project. Okay. So the configurations should be done. The configurations should be done in every project. Configuration should be done in every project. Are you getting my point? Suppose, for example, I want to, yesterday we configured actuators. So now I want to configure actuators. So actuators, we need to configure in all the services, or you will configure only in one service? Guys, actuators you need to configure in all the services, or actuators you will configure in only one service? In all the services. Can I say a duplicate configuration will be available? Can I say that a duplicate configuration will be available? Yes, a duplicate configuration will be available when we go for microservices. That is one of the challenging task, guys. That is one of the challenging task. That is one of the challenging task. So first thing is understanding how many microservices are required. That is one problem. Understanding how many microservices are required, that is one problem. And the second problem, doing the configurations in all the services. Doing the configurations in all the services, that is also a problem. Doing the configurations in all the services, that is also a problem. And the third problem is visibility. Third problem is visibility. So when you are working in the microservices architecture, you may not get the chance to work with all the services. You may not get the chance to work with all the services. You may not get the chance to work with all the services. Okay. You may not get the chance to work with all the services when we are working with microservices architecture. When we are working with microservices architecture, you may not get the chance to work with all the services. Okay, guys, understand my point. You may not get the chance to work with all the services when we are working with the microservices architecture. Now, in your team, in your project, there are 50 services available. You may work with only 20 services, or you may work with only 10 services. So other teams will work on the remaining services. You may not get the full clarity on the entire application functionality because services will be available here. Services will be available here. You may not get the chance to work with all the services. You may not get the chance to work with all the services. That's why visibility problem will be available when we go for microservices architecture. Able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? Visibility problem will be available when we go for microservices architecture. Visibility problem will be available when we go for microservices architecture. Are you clear? Are you clear? Are you clear? Now, testing. Testing will become difficult because whenever we send a request, that request may processed by using multiple services. Suppose from UI, request is coming to service one talking to service two, right? So there will be some dependency from one service to another service based on the requirement. Then testing of the project will become difficult. Testing of the project will become difficult when you do like this. Testing of the project will become difficult when you do like this. You got my point? You got my point, guys? Testing of the project will become difficult when we do like this. Loosely coupling will be there, but sometimes there will be some communication from one application to another application, one service to another service we want to talk. Inter-service communication will be available. When a request comes to one REST API, that REST API may talk to another REST API with loosely coupling. With loosely coupling, a REST call will happen. With loosely coupling, a REST call will happen. So when you have such kind of communication from one REST API to another REST API, then testing of your services will become difficult. Unit testing of your services will become difficult. And the next one, debugging. Debugging also little challenging when you go for microservices when there is a communication between one service to another service, when there is a communication between one service to another service, then we will face some difficulty in doing the unit testing and in doing the debugging. In doing the unit testing, in doing the debugging, we will face some difficulty. We will face some difficulty. Are you clear with my point now? I will tell you how to communicate from one API to another API with loosely coupling. I will discuss in the microservice development. How to establish communication from one API to another API, I will explain, don't worry. Guys, are you able to understand what is monolith and what is microservices? Are you able to understand what is monolith and microservices? So disadvantages, we don't call them as the disadvantages, we will call them as a challenges. So we can consider these are the challenges or disadvantages of the microservices, these things. Could you please read it? Monolith versus microservices. Can you read these points? All of you, can you read these points now? Monolith versus microservices. Application can be developed in two ways. Application can be developed in two ways. What are the two ways to develop the application? One is monolith architecture and the second one is microservices architecture. Monolith architecture is there, microservices architecture is there. If we develop all the functionalities in one single application, then it is called as monolith application. Are you guys able to understand? Monolith means all the functionalities we are developing in one single application, then it is called as monolith. When we go for monolith, there are some advantages are available. Application development is easy. Application deployment is easy. Application scaling the performance, easy testing, easy debugging. KT is also easy. KT means knowledge transfer. Explaining your project to the new team members is also easy. Explaining your project to the new team members is also easy. Are you clear? Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? Okay, fine. Next one, deployment is easy. KT is easy. Testing is easy. Debugging is easy. There are some disadvantages also. What are the disadvantages? Single point of failure. When some problem occurs in the project, the whole project is going to be down. Single point of failure is one of the problem when we go for monolith. And when we make a small change in the project, then the whole project should be redeployed. Whole application should be redeployed when you make a small change in the project. As the application will be running, as the entire application will be running in single server, when more number of requests comes to the application, scalability will become a problem. Because when the traffic is increasing, we need to, increase the servers. When the traffic is decreasing, we need to decrease the servers. So that will become a problem. Okay, fine. So to overcome the problems of the monolith, we are going for microservices. What is the meaning of microservice? If we develop the functionalities in multiple APIs, instead of developing one single project, we are going to develop the functionality in multiple APIs, then it is called as microservices architecture based application. Microservice is not a technology. Microservice is not a framework. Microservice is not an API. Microservice is just one architectural design pattern to develop the application with loosely coupling. Microservices is just one architectural design pattern which is used to develop the functionality with loosely coupling. Okay, so when we go for this microservices, there are some advantages available and there are some challenges also available. There are some advantages available and there are some challenges available. What are the advantages? Loosely coupling, fast development, quick releases. Loosely coupling, fast development, quick releases available. Okay, flexibility will be there, scalability will be there, no single point of failure, technology independence concept also we can achieve when we go for this microservices. What are the challenges? Challenges are bounded context, identifying number of services. Okay, client has given some requirements. Client has given some requirements. So how many services we need to develop? How many services we need to develop? Do we need to develop 100 services? Do we need to develop only 20 services? How many services we need to develop? That we need to discuss when we go for microservices. And configurations. So security configuration, database configurations, and actuator configuration. So several places in all the services we need to do some common configurations. Configurations will become duplicate when you go for microservices. And visibility. You may not get the chance to work with all the services in your project. Suppose your project is having 150 microservices. Nothing but 150 services are available in the project. You may not get the chance to work with all the 150 services. So in your tenure in the project, you worked for 2 years in the project. In the 2 years, you got the chance to work with only 50 microservices. Remaining 100 microservices, you did not get the chance. That is a visibility problem. Next one, testing is difficult because several services will be available. So testing all the services functionality, integration testing will become difficult part. And debugging, if there is a communication from one service to another service, then debugging the code will become little challenging thing when you go for microservices architecture. So theoretically, are you clear what is microservice? Theoretically, are you clear what is microservice and what is monolith? Monolith means everything will be available at one place. Microservices means distributed architecture. Monolith means one single application for all the functionalities. Microservices means distributed architecture. Functionality will be distributed to multiple services. One single application, monolith means everything at one place. If you go for microservices, functionality will be divided into multiple services. Monolith versus microservices architecture. Currently, which architecture is trending in the market? Currently, which architecture is trending in the market? Microservices architecture is trending in the market. Okay, so in the tomorrow session, we will talk about microservices architecture. Okay, so what components we are going to develop in the microservices tomorrow, Sunday. So let's have some long session. So to discuss about microservices architecture. Okay, guys. Okay. So tomorrow, let's have a long session. So tomorrow at same time, class will be there. So let's start at 7 o'clock, 7 to 9:30. I will take the class tomorrow. So tomorrow I will tell you microservices architecture and I will tell you how to develop the microservices application. Okay, guys, 7 to 9:30 tomorrow class timing. We will work on microservices architecture. Bye bye. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.